The article describes the experiences of an Israeli soldier and a Palestinian mother in Gaza during the conflict with Hamas. The Israeli soldier shares his support role in providing supplies to combat soldiers, while the Palestinian mother struggles to keep her family safe. Commerce. Customize. Reservist. Ferreting. Evacuate. Abandoned.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Shopify, the global commerce platform that helps you sell and show up exactly the way you want to. Customize your online store to your style. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/NPR.
Today on State of the World, what it's like on the ground in Gaza from an Israeli and a Palestinian. Thanks for listening to State of the World from NPR. We bring you the day's most vital international stories, up close where they're happening. It's Wednesday, November 29th. I'm Greg Dixon. Today, we're going to hear two experiences inside Gaza as the war between Israel and Hamas rages. In a few minutes, a Palestinian mother in Gaza as she tries to keep her family safe and alive. But first, the story of a young Israeli soldier who recently spent 2 weeks in Gaza in a support role for his commando unit. NPR's Daniel Estrin met him on a short weekend furlough before he headed back to the war.
My name is Alon Keren. I'm almost 22 years old, and I was 2 weeks in Gaza.
Alon Keren sits in his backyard in a tony suburban neighborhood of Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv. We're surrounded by a manicured hedge and citrus trees heavy with fruit. He spent 2 weeks in Gaza and arrived home the morning before we met.
First thing was the laundry, good showers, good food, good sleep, good friends.
And he has to report back to his base the following morning. In Israel, army service in the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, is mandatory for most 18-year-olds. He finished his service a few months ago, but was called up as a reservist when the war began last month. He's serving in a support role, ferreting in supplies for the 20 combat soldiers in his commando unit.
Someone had to do it, and it's a small job, but in the end it helps.
Every 48 hours, he drives back into Israel with equipment to repair damaged weapons, drones that malfunctioned, or that soldiers accidentally shot out of the sky.
Even the IDF soldiers, the other IDF soldiers, think this is drones of Hamas, and so they shoot it.
When he's across the border in Israel,
we can take a shower and connect to the phones, so we can communicate with our parents and friends, tell them that we are all right, and then we go back.
They leave their phones behind and drive back into Gaza with supplies for the troops: food, water, hand sanitizer, wet wipes, beef jerky.
Yeah, candies, chocolate they get sometimes, snacks.
Sometimes he drives soldiers to their missions, which he described as raids. Sometimes he's evacuated lightly wounded soldiers from shrapnel. Scores of soldiers have been killed in Gaza. He is not in combat.
The days for me are pretty simple. It's not like a routine for me. We wake up, we drink the coffee, you can see the beach, and it's nice.
Have you seen any of the Palestinians?
No. Not one.
Israel has ordered Palestinians to evacuate northern Gaza where the troops are, though some have stayed. His unit slept in an abandoned home in sleeping bags on the floor with the sound of bombings and tanks outside.
A little bit hard to sleep because of the noise, so you need to be almost the whole time with earplugs.
An Israeli stand-up comic and Instagram star was sent to entertain the troops and their friends watching back home. Alon Keren appears in the background of this video when he was on one of his breaks across the border in Israel. He shows me a picture of the soldiers in his unit hanging out in Gaza on the Mediterranean shore at sunset.
The water is here. And that area is very safe. So you don't feel the war. You feel that the IDF, this is his place. So it's not Gaza anymore.
Gaza is no longer what it was before the war. The extent of the destruction is hard to fathom. The deaths have been catastrophic. The vast majority of the population has been displaced, scrounging for food, water, safe shelter. A completely different experience from that of this soldier, who admits he doesn't have a real sense of the bigger picture of where the war is going.
You can't understand the big picture, so for me it's feel right to take part. It's not fun for us. It's not fun for no one, but we have to do it to protect our civilians and to make sure they can live in their cities safe.
His girlfriend, Noam Segal, who's almost 21, is here listening to his stories along with me. I asked her about Palestinians enduring the war in Gaza, who are not part of Hamas.
From what I heard, that there is also people that are not part of this organization, but support what this organization do, and it's to kill us. So I cannot be sorry for them, but I'm sorry for people that's not part of it and just live there and need to suffer this. But I'm also, I need to think first of my people.
It's personal for them. They know 3 kids around their age who were taken hostage in Gaza, including this soldier's neighbor a few houses away. Their moms are friends.
It feels very weird that because of Gaza Strip is very small, when I'm in Gaza Strip, I said to myself, there is 250 Israeli civilians probably very close to me.
Later that night after we met, one of their friends was released from captivity and left Gaza, while the next morning, this soldier went back to Gaza in uniform. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Herzliya, Israel.
So that's the experience of an Israeli soldier inside Gaza. Now, another life in Gaza and another side of this war. NPR's Aya Betrawi has been talking to Palestinians in Gaza throughout the conflict. She brings us this story of a mother trying to shield her children from the horrors of war and stay alive.
In Gaza, seconds between life and death. You can't expect when, how long will you live.
That's Iman Abu Said, an architect, social worker, and a Palestinian mother of 2. She was still in her home in Gaza City when I called her on October 9th. She's one of the people I'd been introduced to over the phone as I was searching for people to talk to in the Gaza Strip about life during this war. But already, life as she knew it had changed.
My sister was calling me right now. She called me to send her some clothes for her kids.
Abu Said comes from a family of 11 siblings. She told me one of her sisters was displaced and needed to borrow clothes from her children, Judy, 12, and Ziad, 11.
I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain the situation in Gaza. It's catastrophic. And, there are things that happen in war in Gaza that you can't know from news. You need to live them to understand them.
Like how hard it is to protect your children from the horrors of war and the smell of death and bombs all around. Her kids were terrified of the buzzing of Israeli aircraft and the crashing boom of airstrikes, the bombardment from Israeli naval ships off the coast.
From the sea, from the air, from everywhere. Many of the buildings surrounding us have been bombed by F-16. So, we're trying to escape, but we don't know where to go.
Just 2 days into the war, the building next to hers had already been hit by a bomb.
We woke up with the dust of bombing on our faces and bodies and smelling of gunpowder and dirt. And my kids crying and shouting all the day because of the bombing from the F-16 war airplanes from the Israeli occupation. And we feel helpless, afraid.
Israel blames civilian deaths on Hamas, saying it operates in civilian areas by using people for cover. But Abu Said rejects this argument and says Israel's actions against Gaza go much further, including a 16-year blockade since Hamas took over. Her children never had a chance to see life outside Gaza.
They didn't see anything outside Gaza except kills, murder, electricity off, no food. What about our civilians and our children and kids in Gaza Strip? What about them? Do you wait for the Gazans to fight for their rights and to get back their rights to live in dignity? It's the simplest requirements of our kids and our people here in Gaza. They need to move freely. They need to have adequate services, water, electricity, as anyone in the world. That's it.
She listed all the wars and conflicts her children had already survived.
2014, 2021, 2022, 2023, aggression in Gaza, yes.
She told me about specific scenes of death in Gaza during this war, of mothers and children being pulled out of the rubble as ashla, Arabic for body parts. She didn't want her kids to see that.
Kids are dead, mothers' kids dead. They are just full of dust. They are like ashla, yani. They are, yes, it's a horrible things to see here in Gaza. And I try to make my kids safe.
She ended up moving with her kids and her husband to her parents' home in an area Israel told people to flee to. Then, on October 31st, airstrikes destroyed the 5-story building, according to witnesses. Abu Said and her family were killed. Iman Abu Said was pulled from the rubble in body parts, just like the scenes she'd been trying to shield her children from. Her 2 children, Judy and Ziad, and her husband, Iyad, also died. In all, 23 members of her family died in that attack, including her parents, 5 siblings, other relatives, and 12 children in total from the family. Her brother, Muhammad Abu Said in the UK, confirmed the details of her death and how hard it's been.
You know, Iman is a very kind person. Oh my God, she has this really big heart. But we never expected that the whole building will be flattened. This is something we never expected. Never came to my mind. Mentally, it's very, very damaging. I don't know. 10 years I was praying that to Allah, just to reunite us with my family, and but this will never happen.
In our conversations, Abu Said had told me that she saw the Hamas attack on Israel as, quote, a very natural response to what Israel had done since 1948. She said she knew Americans wouldn't understand this about an attack that killed women and children and took hostages.
Is it only the right for Israel, the occupation, to defend themselves? And what about the Gazans? What about them? What about them? Who will defend them?
Just days before her death, Iman Abu Said wrote there was no longer internet to call me, and that her home that she'd left in Gaza City had been bombed. She said, Gaza is bleeding. Aya Batrawi, NPR News.
That's the State of the World from NPR. Consider supporting vital journalism like this from around the world. You can do that by signing up for State of the World Plus at plus.npr.org or on our show page in Apple Podcasts. Thank you for your support. Thanks to everyone for listening. See you again soon.